welcome to Two Lads for the Scheme. I'm Aidan Martin.
I'm Mark Deans.
And today we're talking to Lacy Cartwright.
Hi.
Thank you for being here, Lacy. For anyone watching doesn't know, this is take 3, and I had to point at Mark's face when it was his turn to speak, and we started again. Lacy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, my name is Lacy. I am also from Livingston. Went to Inveramond as well as Aidan and Mark, albeit a different year. And I teach breathwork, which is a form of meditation, mindfulness, but it's also like nervous system healing. And I predominantly work with women who are highly traumatised.
So I was saying pre-recording that Mark and I have been looking at all the stuff on your Instagram, on your Facebook, and that I admire your work from afar. I see the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah.
I've taken a quote from something that you've said, and I'm going to read it to you and just ask you to expand on the quote.
Yeah, go for it.
And it is, it's never too late to live the life you've always wanted, the life that you deserve. And it's also about helping women overcome their limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And I just wanted you to expand on that for us.
So I'll start with what limiting beliefs are. So they are things that are almost pre-conditioned into you in childhood. That your parents have done, and sometimes it's through things like neglect and abuse, but it's also, it's not always like that kind of serious, just like throwaway comments from parents, from other adults, from your teachers, societal norms and expectations, like say like on boys, like boys play football, and then you grow up thinking, oh, I'm a terrible boy because I don't play football. Do you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And then for girls, it's so you have to be a good girl, and then you spend your whole life believing that you should always behave and look nice and be nice and neat and pretty and all of these things, and they can really affect us as adults actually, and especially if you're not very self-aware. So if you're trying new skills, if you are trying to like branch out in a new business or just anything in your day-to-day life, it can become difficult because you don't believe that you can do it. And it can really stop people from having this amazing, fabulous life that, is there for all of us 100%. And it can stop you in your tracks, basically. So I work with women to help them overcome the more kind of serious, like physical symptoms of trauma, but also to kind of break down the limiting beliefs, that they believe about themselves. So if they were in an abusive relationship and they were told that they were fat, they were ugly, they're terrible at this, rubbish at that, and it can really affect people. And it's just to help them to kind of break the chains and live their best lives, because that's what we want.
Are there any common themes for limiting self-beliefs that come up with the women that you support and work with?
A lot of stuff about how they look is always a really big one, their weight. And some of the women that I work with are not that physical beauty is the be-all and end-all of a person, but some of them are beautiful women. Like you would see them and you would think, that they don't have any issues like with their weight, with their self-image, but they've been in very abusive relationships, very manipulative relationships, and their self-worth, their self-image is literally, it's on the floor. Do you know what I mean? And they just can't see past it. They don't see what everybody else sees, and it really affects their kind of day-to-day life, their jobs, their families, forming new relationships with, friendships, old friendships, things like that. So, it can really, have an impact on, even how you feel when you wake up in the morning. If you look in the mirror and you feel like, I don't like how I look, or I don't like myself in these clothes, then, if you go on holiday and you don't feel good, you might have a rubbish holiday. So it's just, it can impact almost everything.
I had body dysmorphia, but it was linked to cocaine use, I would say, at the time. And I was really skinny, and I hated reflections. I hated even going past cars and seeing like side mirrors and stuff. Like I really just couldn't, even with someone's glasses, man, I hated seeing how I looked.
Wow.
And a lot of that for me, and this is me just talking about my own experience, a lot of that for me was about, I really hated myself.
Yeah.
And it was to do with a lot of unresolved trauma and too many other things to open up here, but that's where I can find identification with some of that.
Yeah.
As far as the way things are now, I'm just talking from a male perspective, steroid use is on the rise.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like steroids, there's needle exchange vans in Livingston.
Wow.
And That's so that people who are intravenous drug users can get clean needles. It's a form of harm reduction. But what we're hearing is that 50% of the needles are for people who are using steroids.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that a lot of that's to do with body image. And I use the example of superhero films.
Right, okay.
So if it's like Thor or Spider-Man or even Iron Man, they're either really athletic or really massively well built.
Yeah.
Even if they've got their characters like really brainy, like the Iron Man guy, the outfit he wears is still all full of muscles and stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder if the body image is linked to what we're being told all the time that would make you happy and how you should look. And but I think it goes deeper than that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so
it's been the same for women for years. Like, not just women, obviously, but for women, you see it over the last 20 years, there's been like a rise in, obviously, like, they had magazines to start with, so you were seeing magazines like Vogue and all that, like airbrushed images of women, and then it became Facebook, and then it's Instagram, and now it's literally everywhere. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, adverts on the telly, everywhere you look are these photographs that have been airbrushed and made perfect. And you've got generations of folks that have grown up with that and seen that and that are damaged because of
totally. I mean,
how
I was
they look.
a chubby teenager in the early 2000s, so that was like Christina and the Chaps, do you know what I mean? And like you look at that as an adult and like you know that that's not the norm of how women look every day. But like when you're looking at that at 14, you think that's how I should look, and you know I'm not worth anything if I don't look like that. And then there was also the size zero movement that was maybe like 2007 to 2008. And you know, it's just all of these things, and people put all of this validation and self-worth on how they look and how others perceive them, and it's not good. And I'm definitely seeing it a lot in the work that I do. And like I would never look at these women and think that they were anything but like 10 out of 10, but they just don't see it in themselves at all. And I mean, but a lot of it is internal, like you said. It's like you're projecting it out onto your physical body when it's actually how you feel inside, like on a kind of mental and soul level.
I think a lot of, see, when I started becoming comfortable with the way I looked, when I started getting like really heavily tattooed. I don't know, obviously it's a bit different, but I didn't feel like myself really. Like I wanted to be expressing myself, and then like outwardly expressive, and my outfits were always a bit kind of weird and things like that. But then when I started getting tattooed, I started to feel more at home in my own skin and more confident. And I just never stopped.
I would say as well that tattoos certainly made me feel more comfortable. It's funny because being in recovery is where I get my self-worth and self-value, and I've chipped my tooth.
Nice.
And in the past, I couldn't have dealt with that. I couldn't have dealt with having a chip, especially something on my face that people can see. And I've not gotten the dentist yet to fix it because I'm kind of enjoying the defiance of being like, so what, man?
Don't care.
Who cares?
Look how hard it looks.
I know.
He's like, it's because you want to look hard. But,
hand tattoos and a chipped tooth now.
Yeah. Bonnets. Something that is really important to me in the work I do and the work that we're doing with the scheme, and it's something that you've talked about, is unresolved trauma.
Yeah.
I think this plays a big role in how people feel about themselves and how they feel about their looks.
Absolutely. And I think that some people really think that trauma has to be this big, massive, I've been physically abused, I've been sexually abused, I've been neglected as a child. And of course, they are 100%, like they are up there. But it could be really simple stuff from, you know, like your childhood, like maybe your mum didn't give you enough physical affection, so you instantly take it on as this complete truth that you are unlovable, or your dad never told you that what you were doing was really good, you didn't get any validation from your dad, so you go about your whole life seeking male validation with romantic partners. And it's just little things like that, and everybody has something that they need to work on, like 100%, and it will impact your life as an adult, like in the world, trying to function, trying to thrive. And people find that it's actually really hard to do that, and they don't know why. And a lot of the time it's either your big T trauma, though these kind of phrases come from a book by Dr. Nicole LaPera. Have you read any of her stuff? No. She's called The Holistic Psychologist, and she's got 2 books out. And she talks about big T trauma, which is like physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, like death of a parent when you're really young, and then like little T trauma, which is you weren't given enough hugs, or you weren't like bought like the brand name thing for your Christmas that all your friends got and you didn't get. And it's these sound almost like inconsequential, but they can actually affect your whole identity and how you kind of feel, and even how you feel physically. You'll know yourself with the trauma is the physical symptoms can be like anxiety, depression, you can be really tired, you can be a total perfectionist as well, which comes up a lot. You can people please, all of these things, they all come under like trauma responses.
Yep, I identify with a lot of them myself. I was thinking about growing up as a wee guy, not knowing my dad, my biological father, and having people stop me on the street all the time and say, "You're such and such's kid."
Yeah.
And the stories would always be about how he battered somebody with a snooker cue at the ferns, or how he was pulling this woman, or taking this drug. And it was all like, that was the stuff to aspire to. That you were told that was what it meant to be masculine. But for me, there was stuff going on that we didn't have the language for, and that was attachment issues, abandonment issues. We now have terms like adverse childhood experiences, ACEs. And so the theory suggests that if you've had 4 or more ACEs, you listed a lot of them, the big T's and little T's, all of them are adverse childhood experiences.
Yeah, that's right,
And if you've had 4 or more, you're much higher at risk for ending up in prison, ending up both the perpetrator or the victim of violence, of domestic abuse, of substance issues later in life.
Yeah.
So it manifests itself much later. A lot of the stuff that I went on to do came from a beginning of having attachment issues.
Yeah, I would say that some of mine probably stems from that as well. As you know, my dad died when I was quite young, and at that time, I mean, I'm 34, so my dad died when I was 10. So 24 years ago, you didn't have this support in a primary school. It was like, oh, your dad's dead. Get a social worker to check that they're not being battered and the house isn't disgusting, and then that's it. And, you know, that was really all the support that we kind of had. And now I know as an adult that actually that is an adverse childhood experience. And
a big T,
it's
right?
It's a big T, and it's totally sets you up for other big Ts. It's almost like it's setting the stage. I'm like, yes, traumatise me. And I'm making jokes about it. But,
we use humour as a way of coping.
Totally.
It's a coping mechanism.
Absolutely.
It's an obvious question. Maybe it's not an obvious question.
Yeah.
Should there have been more interventions for you to get bereavement support as a child?
Yeah, definitely. Especially when I think actually about how young we were. Like my sister was only 7 when my dad died, and I have a daughter that's 6, and I just cannot imagine her, like she'll be 7 in November, having to go through her life without her dad at that age. You know, she's so reliant on him for love and support and for all of these things, and she doesn't get it. And so, I mean, my brother was 12 when my dad died as well. I mean, 12's a shitty age anyway, isn't it? Like, to lose your dad at that age is really hard. And there should have been definitely more support for us. My mum did her best, but again, you know, single parent, it is hard, and there's always going to be things that fall through the cracks and things that are said and done that maybe shouldn't have. And again, it's just adds more layers on top of the trauma.
Yeah.
I was 26 when my dad passed away, and even at that point, I thought I was young, do you know what I mean? And then I had a long time with him, but when I lost him, it felt like he'd eternity. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, my mum's like amazing, but my dad was just like, I could go to him and watch football with him. Do you know what I mean? He was an older guy. My dad was 82 when he died, but that was the doing boy stuff. Do you know what I mean? With him. I was going to say earlier on when we were talking about being young and at school and that, people, I can't remember exactly what we were talking about, but folk, because I was artistic or different, you're like, oh, gay. Do you know what I mean? And it's like stuff like that I could go to my dad and be like, let's watch football or something, like watch wrestling or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
I was actually thinking about this earlier because my son's very gentle and and I really worry that people are going to say these things to him. And I mean, if he's gay, I don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like, I will love and support him no matter what. But he is a gentle little boy and he won't hit anybody back. Like, I've got beef with a 4-year-old at his nursery because he's catching him in the face. I'm like, and but he won't hit him back and he won't tell a teacher because he's so soft and gentle. And I'm like, I can't actually stand the thought of anybody being mean to him and then him feeling like he's less of a man, because that's not what equates to masculinity. you know, violence and sport is not what makes a man. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know, I wish that it was taught. Obviously, we've spoke about it before. We spoke about it in the last episode that when you were young, you couldn't be expressive. Do you know what I mean? You couldn't say like, oh, I like writing or I like painting or whatever. It came out, obviously. I was sitting in class painting. We used to have a woman come in called Mrs. Kane, who was amazing.
I remember her, yeah.
She was awesome. Yeah. And that's what she's what got me into art to start with. And there was boys in my class who went on to then be like literally like in prison for like really like hurting people or murdering people. Do you know what I mean? And it's like that's the group that I was like coming up with. Yeah. And you couldn't sit and paint or like be expressive around that because you just couldn't. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I'm just thinking about everything you're both saying is like triggering memories for me. I talk about this stuff a lot. It felt like, and I don't know who set the rules, but being a wee boy growing up in Ladywell, it felt like you had to have a French crop haircut. Your left ear was the only ear you can get pierced.
Yep, absolutely.
You had your hoodies and your Rockports and your jeans and your gold chains, and you had to have a Celtic or Rangers as your team.
Yeah. You couldn't have 2 stripes.
You couldn't have 2 stripes or 4 stripes on your trackies.
You had a pair of K-Swiss. I had a pair of K-Swiss, which is an alright American brand, and I wore them in second year and I got slaughtered, and I never wore them again.
I remember I got a pair of Rockports in second year, and by that point, nobody was wearing Rockports anymore. And I was like, what the fuck, man?
No.
Yes.
Honestly, I thought they were amazing. I loved them, man.
Here's how mad that was, though. Me and my friends who were going to Invit at the same time and grew up in the same street in Ladywell, both got braces for our teeth at the same time. And we both broke our braces on purpose because you got battered at school for wearing them.
100% you would have, yeah.
For just fixing your teeth. And rather than getting a doing, we broke our braces because we knew our mums would keep making us wear them. Yeah. And that was free on the NHS at the time. Both he and I, later in life, had to pay thousands to get our teeth fixed because we were too scared to get bullied for standing out, for doing something. I don't know if it's the same now. It seems like it's more of a cool thing to have braces now. I don't know.
I think the kids now are really expressive, and I see them, like the high school kids, like walking back and forward, and I'm like, if that's amazing that they've got like their hair that colour and they're wearing these clothes, because I would have literally got battered if I was walking about like that. And like, you know, we're talking about it so casually, but there was this fear of going against the crowd, and like, and it's actually like a primal thing, because we talk about it in self-development. It's like tall poppy syndrome. So if you're so afraid to stand out that you will not grow as tall as you can, you'll keep yourself small so that you're not rejected by the kind of community, the group, because in thousands and thousands of years ago, if you stood out too much and you were rejected, it meant death, because you would have been eaten by a wild animal or you would have froze. And it's ingrained.
Or accused of being a witch.
Or accused of being a witch. Yeah. I mean, I would have definitely been.
I would all been hunted.
We're going to get to the higher power stuff, but that's funny you should say primal. We were talking about this in our writing workshops about all these primal needs. And it's funny that, because primal needs being like survival and shelter and the food and all that.
The community.
But it's funny that this was a thing that if you stood out too much, then you were seen as a threat.
That's it, yeah.
And I think that for me, in a way, school was like that. I remember going to Invite and only one guy had long hair.
My brother.
Did your brother have long hair?
My brother had long hair, yeah.
So it was such a rare thing. Yeah. And I remember watching like Italian football, Goal Italia, that was on Channel 4 at the time, and seeing players like Del Piero and Battistuta and Roberto Baggio, and they all had long hair. Yeah. And I loved it. And I used to always think, why does nobody where I come from?
Well, it's not in the scheme got these
hair boys have long hair.
In a lot of cultures, it's very manly to have long hair. Like in Native Americans, the longer your hair is, like the more powerful you are as a man, basically. And if you cut your hair, it's like the worst thing that can happen to you. But
so it's very specific to the Goldfish Bowl of growing up in Livingston and maybe other places in Scotland.
Yeah,
I think it's probably a very Scottish.
A UK thing.
I think so.
Yeah, a very UK thing. Yeah, something
really weird.
It is really weird. Something I wanted to ask you about then is you said you do breath work.
Yeah.
Could you tell us what breath work is?
So you use a very specific breath pattern. It's a lot of people have probably seen the Wim Hof stuff. It's different from Wim Hof. I am not certified by Wim Hof, I should say that. It's a different certification. And you use the breath to access your nervous system. So you're activating your fight or flight, and then you're moving your nervous system through to a state of rest and digest. So what we want is to have a flexible nervous system. because, I mean, we need it. So again, back in the day, primal and all that, you had your nervous system, your fight or flight. It was there to stop you from being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, to save your babies from like earthquakes, like all of these type of things. And now in modern day society, our fight or flight is activated going to the grocery store. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's because obviously things are so different now as well. But so we still need it. It's still going to be good for you. There will still be situations, you know, where you do need your fight or flight, but we don't need it for everything. And people are having panic attacks over things that are not silly, because obviously it doesn't feel silly at the time, but things that, you know, you should just be able to kind of take in your stride. And so breath work, if you've got anything stuck there from any residual trauma, so I mean, it would be amazing for yourself. I hope you don't mind me saying that.
No,
and so like any kind of residual trauma that you have in your nervous system. So say, for example, you are having a panic attack going to the grocery store and you're thinking, what the hell is wrong with me? I used to sit up in kitchens doing cocaine till 6 a.m. We're like gangsters, and now I'm worried about going to, you know, pick up asparagus, my organic asparagus from the supermarket.
That's so true, man.
You know, and it's just because you've got so much trauma that you haven't dealt with, and it's still in the nervous system. And so breathwork just allows you to move through it. So it doesn't always feel very nice. The first 20 minutes are actually hellish because you're in your fight or flight, and then all of a sudden your brain goes like that.
What is that then? Is that the body trying to resist?
Yes. So because you're doing something different, your body's like, hang on a second. Like, we don't do things differently here. We don't want to stand out. We don't want to be a weirdo, you know. So your body will try and stop you. And also, I can't remember what I was going to say, but I'll get back to that. So you move from your fight or flight into your rest or digest, and that is where you feel really chill. So anybody that's been to my breathwork sessions has always reported a great night's sleep afterwards.
Oh,
So
I could do with that.
I know.
You obviously talked about the first 20 minutes. What does that involve?
Just doing the same breath. So you just do the same breath over and over again. So we do that for a whole hour. And it feels almost like exercise because it's your mouth breathing. So that's not natural. And if you have a panic attack, you'll notice that you're mouth breathing when you're doing that. So you almost go into that, oh shit, what is this?
You're gulping for air.
And your gut. But you know what? It becomes amazing though. Like you actually eventually love breathing like that. After the 20 minutes, you're like, I'm only breathing like this for the rest of my life. That's it. Because you get so much more oxygen in your body. So it's good for a lot of things, but it activates the nervous system, which is the main thing that I teach it for. Because it's really good for like your cardiovascular fitness as well. Like, I mean, I've been doing breath work since October 21, and I've been doing 4 spin classes a week, man. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I know,
Respect.
I can't do a spin.
and it's helped so much with the kind of cardiovascular ability to get through a spin class. So it can help with lots of different things.
I wanted to play football for ages, but I hadn't played since before I quit smoking.
Ah, okay.
And I'm like, oh, what's it going to be like? Do you know what I mean? The last time I played, I felt like I was going to be sick. Mm-hmm. So now I think it maybe would help.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Just getting back to a healthy place.
That's it, yeah. So it's good for physical health, mental health, and if you like the spirituality kind of stuff, which I'm definitely into, it's good for kind of soul.
I'm going to come to
We're
spirituality.
going to get that. I won't bring it up yet.
Can I ask one more thing before we move on? Where does it come from? Like, where does it originate from?
The breath work. So it's actually a breath that shamans and witches would have used thousands of years ago to contact the spirits and the gods, because you feel like you're high as fuck when you're doing it. Like you can get like a brain dump of DMT, so that's your dream chemical.
Just through the breathing exercises?
Just through the breathing, it can like totally just
dream
dump
molecule.
it there. And it's almost like when you close your eyes and it's like a psychedelic trip kind of, there's a lot of like bright different like lights and colours and things like that. And a lot of people have reported saying, were you touching my arm? Were you standing next to me? Were you lying next to me at any point? And I'm like, wasn't me.
I did not lie next to you.
I know, just me lying there next to my clients.
There must be some kind of really deep experience for people that get to that place with the breathing exercise.
It's amazing, and a lot of people cry when we do it as well, because you are just accessing your limbic brain, so that's your emotional brain. So the limbic brain doesn't have any notion of time or like things like that. So if we are doing inner child work and I say, ask your inner child to come forward, and we start working with a theme that has been quite triggering for you in your childhood, you almost become that little child again, and you will start crying, like almost everybody that
They're
does.
still in there, man.
Yeah, and that's it, because your emotional brain is just activated straight off the bat, and people have some massive releases, like physical. Like I had one girl who came in and she had this big, massive, like full body shake, like her whole body was shaking, and she was crying. And it was so intense. And then I got other people that just come in and just laugh and smile all the way through it, even though they've got so much to work through. That's their brain is maybe either just not ready for the deep stuff yet, so it gives them like a wee done happiness instead. But it can give you so much. And that's why I just love it, because it's so physical and it's so mental at the same time. Like,
I would really, this is funny we're talking about this, because I've looked at your classes and thought I would really love to come. And then that wee guy, we're talking about the whole gender stuff, that wee guy's like, oh, but it's all women, and is it okay for a guy to come along and do it? And
so I mark it towards women, and I would be happy for yourself to come along. If I don't want this to sound sexist,
no,
but
you would need to make sure they were comfortable with a male coming into the space.
That's it, yeah, because they've been through a lot.
It's like a safe space.
Yeah,
so this really brings me, I think that's important to have those boundaries, and because when we do workshops, we ask people, what values do you want in here? And they set the values themselves. And so you were talking about getting vulnerable in a room full of strangers. I've taken this again from one of your posts. So what is that like for people to come in, especially if they're new to the setting?
I've had a lot of different reactions. So some people are absolutely okay and they'll just lie there and cry. And in the yoga studio, we've got these little eye bags. So they're like, they block out all the light. And they're quite not heavy, but it's like a weight, which is like really good for people with anxiety. If you feel, like you get the weighted blankets, it's like that kind of idea, but it's on your eyes. And we did dad stuff, and the girls cried so much and so heavily that there was eye makeup had stained right through the eye bags in the yoga studio. Women had to say to me, like, can you ask the girls not to wear eye makeup? And I was like, yeah, I'll ask them. Because it was so intense. And some of the girls are okay with that. And then people that aren't ready for it, they come in and they maybe get a wee fright, and I won't see them for months and months. But they do normally come back once they've digested what's happened.
So I think, again, I can't speak for you, but when we do groups, we're not purposely trying to trigger things, but especially when we're doing work in prison, we get guys in prison open up and share things in front of each other.
Amazing.
We come away from that thinking that's a result. Okay, these guys have felt safe in that environment to talk about their feelings.
Yeah, we've created an atmosphere in which they feel like they can open up and actually be honest and talk about stuff. And obviously that's another one where the values come into play, where we're like, confidentiality, nothing leaves the room, do you know what I mean? Like, we create a safe space. And some of the stuff we've had, some of the work that they've written has been amazing, eh?
Yeah.
And I wonder then if, not that you set out to create any one emotion in a person, but if you're receiving emotions from people, that must show you this is having an impact on people. That are getting something from it.
It does. And, there's so much energy in the room when we're doing it. And, with my training, it teaches you how to hold space for people. And, I can feel it. Like, I'm walking around the room like, wow, like, this is intense, man. And some of the women are they're so ready for it, and like it's exactly what they needed. And I've got one very regular client who comes in and she has the biggest emotional release every single time, and she has just gotten so much from it. And I totally get that for some people group work is not the answer. So I have opened up now one-to-one spaces so people can come in and we can work on. So for people with maybe things like sexual trauma or like stuff that's really from their childhood that they don't really want to get down with, not that they have to share with the group while they're there, like we don't do it like anything like that, but they might just want to be one-on-one because it is going to be so triggering, especially if they do really struggle with things like social anxiety and stuff like that as well.
See, as much as it would be intense, obviously, to be a part of that, lying in a group of like 8 to 10 people or something like that.
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Like, crying your heart out. I think obviously once you get past the initial shock of how awkward and weird that is, at the end of it, it must feel amazing for everyone to be like, gives a hug, do you know what I mean? Like, that was amazing.
Totally.
Like, just like a community of people who have just been able to be that vulnerable in that space. And do you know what I mean?
And the women are so supportive of each other all the time. Like, they're just like always hyping each other up. And like, you know, there's so many times where like I've just seen them like reach for each other at the end and give each other a little hug. And it's so nice. And it's so nice to be the one that's facilitating it as well.
Use the same word, facilitating.
Yeah, you're facilitating growth in people. Do you know what I mean? It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And there's been so much change. And I did a workshop day just before Christmas, and it was on boundaries, and I had a girl that came to the session, and in the first 10 minutes she had a panic attack and she had to get up and leave the room. And like, I just left her to it. She came back into the room, had a glass of water, and then sat back down and did the rest of it. And I hadn't seen her since December, and she came back for the beginning of May session, and she was like a new person, like a totally new person. And she didn't cry through that session either. She just smiled all the way through it. And she's booked in for a 1-to-1, and I'm just like, she's going to smash it. Like, she's going to do it so well. And there's just so much difference in her in those kind of 6 months. But she did get a fright when she first came in, and it was like that proper panic.
I think I see, obviously, you talking about it in terms of how emotional it was and how amazing it was.
Yeah.
But then, I've always wondered, like, I wonder, because you do say it's intense. Do you know what I mean? I was
really
like, I wonder
intense,
how that intensity happens, basically. And obviously, you've explained it really well.
Yeah, I hope I have.
No, definitely.
Yeah. So it is really intense, and I say that in my like social media posts, but I'm like, people don't actually know what I'm talking about, because they need to come and they need to try it, and they're not going to understand until they're like.
I think, see, from my point of view, I imagined it being like almost like a guided meditation at the end of yoga. Do you know what I mean? For ages, and I'm like, well, that looks pretty interesting. Do you know what I mean?
It's a lot more intense than that, because when you're mouth breathing, so it's like you breathe into your stomach, into your chest, and then out through your mouth, and you just do that for 50 minutes. And I do go through like a guided meditation kind of stuff. I'm pretty creative. I like to write, much like yourself, and I write all these kind of visualizations and things like that, and write down affirmations, or almost do journal prompt style questions at the end, just to get people kind of thinking, you know, the hard questions about doing self-development, because some of it's really painful. Like, you have to ask yourself really hard questions, and you have to be self-aware. And it's like, so I was getting really annoyed at my 6-year-old this morning, because she's got to argue with me about 5 times before we even leave the house.
Identify.
Yeah.
I identify so hard.
And I was getting so annoyed at her, and they've had a lot of sickness this month and a lot of bank holidays, so my cortisol's through the roof, like, and I can feel it in myself, and I'm getting triggered. And then she went to school, and actually taking her to school and saying goodbye on the playground was really nice. There was no arguments, there was no tears or drama. And then I thought to myself, like, Lacy, why do you want blind obedience from a 6-year-old? Like, why do it as adults do we expect that and think that it's such a slight to us as grown-ups when we don't get it? Like, of course they're going to argue with you. They're figuring the world out. And, and I was like, why was I mad? And you've really got to look at why, from my childhood, why did I expect that? From my early, like, my oldest child is a lot older than the younger two, so she's coming up for 15. So, like, I had her at 19, and we've almost grown up together. So me as a mum to her is totally different as me as a mum to the other two. And it's just asking yourself the hard questions all the time.
Oh, there's so many things I want to ask you. I don't want to lose them all.
No.
I want to, first of all, just ask, how important is unity and fellowship for those that enjoy the group aspect?
Totally important. Totally important. And it is very much like making new friends. Like, I've had a lot of the girls have like exchanged numbers and met up for coffee. I've met up for coffee with a lot of the girls that have come along, and I've made friends as well, because we've all kind of been through a lot of really similar hard things that sometimes other people just don't really understand. And it's always trying to help each other figure each other out.
This brings me on to a question. You've said a few times, people having to ask themselves hard questions.
Yeah.
What's the most difficult question you've had to ask yourself?
Oh.
It's a big one, eh?
That is a big one.
I know.
Do you know, one of my biggest realizations that I had, so I sometimes get really triggered and annoyed when people die and people sanctify them. And it really pissed me off for a long time. Why am I so annoyed at this? Do you know, and no offence to anybody that likes the royal family, but when the king, Prince Philip, when he died, I was like, why is everybody bothered? Like, it really annoyed me. Didn't understand why I was so personally triggered by people mourning publicly. And then I think that it actually came from my own grief with my own dad and my own perception of him as, I mean, obviously, you'll know when your dad died, like, you just have this feeling of they were the greatest person in the whole entire world. And everybody loved them and they were so wonderful. And you almost just forget that that's actually not true. And my dad had a set of children before he had us. So one of the biggest realizations for me was that he was a different dad and a different man, and they had a different version of him than I had this, totally like holier than thou, image of my dad. And it was trying to work through that, and that other people are allowed to have that as well.
I've had this exact same conversation. But
really?
My dad was 55 when I was born. And he had 5 kids to his previous wife, and then my brother to my mum.
Yeah.
And there's 50 odd years between me and my oldest brother.
Wow, that is
so
crazy.
That was like literally, 50 years, sorry. There's about 30 years, I think, between me and my oldest brother.
Probably
so
me as well, yeah.
It's like, my dad was such a young man, do you know what I mean? And he was doing young man stuff. I saw my dad run one time, do you know what I mean? And because he was an older man, he was ill by the time I was alive. And I understand completely what you're saying. Because it is, like, I picture him as this cool guy who was able to enjoy us being chill, and he was coming and enjoying us, like, enjoying my mates and letting us party in the house and that. Yeah. Just because he couldn't be bothered, do you know what I mean? Like, he was just like, I've done all that, do you know what I mean? And it was such a laugh. But at the same time, like, I imagine him being a much more serious character when he first had, like, my brothers and my sisters growing up, do you know what I mean? I say, so me and my partner, we watch a lot of crime documentaries, right? Yeah. And I always make this joke, and not about someone being murdered or anything, of course not. It's just the way people get described all the time. Yeah. And I say, guarantee you, they're going to say they would never hurt a fly. And it's just the thing they say all the time about everybody. Yeah. They would never hurt a fly, they would never hurt a fly. Yeah. And it's kind of, I guess we all do that because we revere people we love, and to us, it's like bias, isn't it? You're like your personal bias for things that you love and you believe in. You'll always kind of lean into that more than questioning it. Did you get to the other end of what you needed to with that? Did you get through that stuff? Yeah, I would say I did. Like, we're all human, and I think that is an important thing to remember about our parents, is that, okay, maybe mistakes were made, maybe they didn't live the life that we thought they lived or whatever, but everybody is human at the end of the day, and you're not a robot, and you are going to make mistakes. So, I used to be judgmental of people who posted about their kids all the time, and then I had kids. Yeah. And then I want to post about my kids all the time. So sometimes it's when you have the other experience, you can go, all right, okay, now I'm doing the very thing I used to criticise people for. Absolutely. And I've had to eat some humble pie with that. I wanted to touch on other things. You're doing a retreat. Yes. As well. Can you tell us a wee bit about that? We're doing a summer solstice retreat. I'm doing it in partnership with my friend Steph, who was actually a client first, and she had some massive releases. We actually did stuff over Zoom, and I wasn't sure how big the releases were going to be over Zoom, but it was massive, like it was crazy. So she is a hypnotherapist, so we are doing a summer solstice retreat. What's that going to involve? There is going to be yoga, breath work, there is going to be meditation on the beach. We are the venue is only 10 minutes from Blackness Castle, so we're going to be doing actual meditation on the beach. We're going to be taking a nature walk around all the kind of fields and like the castle and stuff like that around there, and self-development stuff. So summer solstice is traditionally a time for gratitude, assessment and forward planning. So we're just going to kind of use those themes to put together some journal prompts and EFT tapping and all these other kind of good developmental things for growth. Sounds amazing. I love that. It sounds incredible. I'm sure every single person that's involved in that is going to get so much from it. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. There's a few different things that came up, like creativity and spirituality. Yeah. I love both of these subjects, so choose one and tell us a bit about your take on it. Let's get weird. Let's go for creativity. Do you have any questions? I was told to ask you about your writing. Yes, I know what... only share what you want to share. Faucet of writing you were asked. So I've been writing
I don't know, it's a young adult fantasy. It's based on Scottish folklore, mythology. I've been toying with the idea of not doing young adult and just making it incredibly slutty, which your other half, Rachel, absolutely loves, because I'm sure I sent her over some chapters.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible for anyone to express themselves in any way they want. So a friend of ours today said that there shouldn't be barriers on creativity.
Yeah.
So what's made you decide to go in this direction, Matt?
I don't know, I'm not going to say I read a lot of slutty books, but I do.
Is there a better term? Is it erotica?
Erotica, yeah, we can go for erotica.
You can call it what you want, man. I'm just saying, I think erotica is the term, isn't it?
Erotica is the term. I don't actually read that much erotica, but there's a whole, for anyone that's on TikTok, Book Talk particular, there's a whole basically fairy porn movement.
Oh,
and
shit. Get back on TikTok, Mark.
And I just thought, I'm going to dabble in that. Like, I feel like I could take the book that I'm working on in that direction. I was writing a kind of more middle grade style, and I was really bored with it, actually, writing it kind of like...
What bored you about it?
You don't want to like traumatise the 12-year-olds that are reading this, right? So I couldn't get as dark as I wanted to, and
you had to limit yourself.
I had to limit myself. And Scottish folklore is really dark. Like, there's some terrifying monsters in Scottish folklore, and I just really wanted to explore that. And I've got witches, and there's some really terrifying aspects of witchcraft as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've got like sacrificial, all that kind of stuff, and I just wanted to go with it. And I wanted to make it as heathen as I possibly could.
And I'm fascinated. I think I've read some of it, by the way. I'm pretty sure Rachel showed me some ages ago.
She probably did, yeah.
I think it's amazing that you can blend two completely different genres and make it actually work, though. Yeah. I remember thinking, like, oh shit, that's actually really good.
That's what I like, though. I like things that are different and challenging. Something that my agent says is that my writing's challenging, and that's compliment.
That is a compliment.
It's a compliment because it's like you're brave enough to write what you want. Who's your protagonist? Have you got a protagonist?
I do have a protagonist.
It's a hard word. I was glad I got through it there.
Delilah. I've got like different witch clans, and they're all kind of like. Do you know where St Kilda is? Like right out to the west. It's like a little kind of archipelago, whatever you want to call it. And it's kind of loosely geographically based on that. And I've got different witch clans. And I've got witch hunters. And then I've got really the wild hunt, which is more like a kind of Norse mythology, folklore. I don't know if you guys are into folklore at all, but like the wild hunt are like a whole kind of like fairy cavalcade of warriors that just through the like darker half of the year, like winter and things like that, they just go about collecting souls.
Actually, so we talk about we when we're doing writing workshops, we talk about things like a hook, and that's your hook. I'm interested. I'd love to see where this goes.
I think it's so rich. Like there's so much to it, which I think is amazing.
And that's sometimes I'm struggling because my brain can go in about 45 different directions at once, and then try to channel that into when I'm actually writing, and I can't just word vomit onto the page.
Where are you with it then? Is it a work in progress?
Second draft. Yeah, second draft. I'm on my second draft. I've listened to countless creative writing podcasts. I have done a creative writing course. I read all the time as well. And I try and read really far, like with my genres. Like I do prefer fantasy, but I try to read really different things or really challenging work. Like I read the recent one, Bunny. Have you heard of that?
No, you've recommended stuff to me before, which I've not yet read. I don't know if that's one of them.
That's bad.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I have no time in mind. I'm so sorry.
Doesn't listen to songs asking me to listen to.
It doesn't do that either.
I'm trying. Oh no, you sent me a song as well. I'm not listening to that yet.
I did send you a song.
I'm sorry, I've got a lot to do.
Terrible friend.
Yeah.
It was really weird. And it was like, you don't know, it's got a very unreliable narrator, so you have no idea what's actually going on. And if she's just imagined like this cult within like a really kind of prestigious American university are turning bunny rabbits into boys and then like axing them to death.
Wow, that sounds dark.
It's really dark, and you have no idea what's actually going on at all through the whole thing. And I did read it like, wow, like this is weird. But like I think that was good, like reading something weird.
Did you ever watch anything by David Lynch?
No, what's he?
Does Twin Peaks and all that kind of stuff.
No, I've not watched
it. Sounds in the same sphere as that.
Same
Sometimes
strangeness.
it seems like it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but it's art.
Rachel reads stuff like that as well. I think it's so interesting.
She recommended me a really artsy one. It was that Ocean Vuong. What was the title? It had a really pretty title.
I can't remember. I can picture the cover right now.
It's about the Vietnamese boy that writes letters to his mother who abused him.
Oh, is it On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous?
That's it. Yeah.
I've read it. I've got
it's
it.
Amazing, eh?
Yeah, it's great. It's
so
such
good.
lyrical writing.
Yeah, that's what I like.
It deals with everything from race, sexuality, like class.
Crazy.
There's just a lot of themes in it, and he just does it in a really lyrical way.
Yeah, and like the
addiction
war,
as well. Actually,
the war, addiction, the war, It was like when they were writing about the monkeys. I don't know why that was like really hardcore, wasn't it?
So there was a bit in it where they
what the Americans.
They've cut their top of their head, the monkeys' heads off, and it's probably too brutal to talk about.
I've seen it on film once.
Oh really?
Yeah,
it's on a DVD called Faces of Death 2.
Right, that's pretty brutal. But we're getting to the end.
We're getting towards the end.
We're getting to the end. Let's veer towards a couple of minutes on spirituality.
Right. Okay, let's do that.
And only what you're comfortable sharing. What's your thoughts on it? I see you talking about star signs sometimes.
I love star signs.
Right. I'm an Aquarius.
You're an Aquarius. You're very Aquarius. My brother's an Aquarius as well, and he's very Aquarius. Spirituality. My spirituality actually came more from self-development. So I had talk therapy over lockdown because, I work with traumatised women. I am a traumatised woman. And I did this talk therapy and it was like something had just cracked open in me. And I just suddenly realised that there was so much more to life that we could see, that we could touch, that we could hear, that we were living. And I started doing like little meditations to kind of get me on my journey. And when I tell you that I had these massive spiritual experiences just from doing a wee meditation, I was like, is this real? Like, I was like, am I having some kind of psychosis? Is this a mental breakdown? Like, I don't know what this is. And I don't think it was psychosis because I'm still here and out living and, things like that. And I am unmedicated. And it was just crazy, like proper, like I did like a heart opening meditation for like your heart chakra. So people that are into that, your chakras are like energy centers. And I just felt this complete bliss, like proper bliss. Like I'd never felt anything like it before. And, I felt forgiveness for everybody and love for everybody.
Wow.
And it was just insane. And then I started seeing things when I was meditating, and I was like, opening my eyes again, like looking in the room, like, all right, like, is this a hallucination? Like, what's going on? And then it just kept happening. And then I obviously read more, went down more rabbit holes, and realised that it was actually like a proper spiritual experience that was happening. And I've just kind of been on this a journey of self-development and spirituality ever since, and my life has just got better and better, like it really has. So I can't, I wouldn't knock it.
I say this stuff all the time. I call it higher power.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I heard that was in recovery meetings. It's quite a common phrase that we use in recovery, but it's gone beyond that for me.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier vision boards and visualization,
another
positive tool. I use those. I told you started using those.
Yeah,
and then
just like complete.
All the stuff started happening.
That's amazing. Love that.
As far as this awareness now of the spirituality side of things, is this now something that's a part of your life going forward? Do you tap into it?
Totally, yeah, totally. Like, and even like the manifestation, I managed to manifest $8,000.
That's pretty good, man.
Like, what the hell?
I had £1 million.
I know. I've been trying to get that one, but I'm like, that's not.
Is there a danger of the ego trying to manipulate it at any point, like saying that, I want £1 million now?
See, I think so. And so when it comes to like money, I'm trying to actually move away from manifesting money, because I think if I need it, it'll come. Like, I don't actually need to overly focus on it. If I need it for something, if I need to be doing, do you know what I mean? It'll just show up. I know it will. So it's more like experiences. So like I really wanted to have an amazing trip with my friends. Like, I love going away with my friends, and they have booked a full trip it's from a Hindu to Milan, and we're going to Lake Como, and I've always wanted to go to Lake Como, and now I'm going, and I'm going for free.
And you
Thanks,
manifested
friends.
it. That's amazing.
That's incredible.
So just like little things like that, and like even like my car. So I learned to drive. I've learned to drive much later in life than most people. I learned this year, and I was panicking about having a car. Like, do you know what I mean? Because first of all, to kind of get the mother half just recently went self-employed, so we wouldn't have been able to get credit to like rent a car. And then, I mean, this story's actually a wee bit sad, but my mum's man died really suddenly at the end of last year. And that was at the same time that I passed my driving test, and we were allowed to just take his car and take over the car.
Yeah.
And so I just got a car out of nowhere. And that was like, that felt like a lot of support from kind of beyond the veil or the
Like
grave.
literally.
Yeah, like
There is
definitely.
a saying, out of a crisis comes an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't ever suggest that the universe makes a sad thing happen, but sometimes can carve something positive out of tragedy.
Yeah.
And we talking about manifestation, we literally walked around Ladyville and manifested this whole charity that we're doing
Amazing.
from scratch. And we just started talking about what we needed growing up and what we felt the community needed and what we could offer. We didn't know we were going to have a charity. We didn't know anything about starting a charity. It was just started at that point.
Planting the
Just
seed
an
and then
idea,
just
Yeah.
tick by tick.
I love that. And now it's here, and think of all the people that you're helping with, or even like those conversations that you've had men in prison able to have. Do you know what I mean? Like that is going to totally impact their whole life. The fact that they were even just able to share something one time, like you don't know the ripples that can come from that, and it's a whole lot of good.
It sounds like one of the cliche sayings, but you can back me up here. I feel like we get as much for working with them as what they say from us.
Totally.
We're just coming to the end of the podcast. So we done this thing last time. Remember Jerry Springer?
Yeah.
Jerry Springer done a final thoughts.
Right,
So
okay.
we done this thing when we threw around the table.
I thought Steve, the big bouncer guy, was
Nah, I don't know if we've got Steve. We've got a Ronnie, but we don't have a Steve. We've got Ronnie over there. Yeah, it was just to give everyone a chance to any final thoughts. You can go first.
Okay. Thanks very much for coming. It's been great to have you.
It's been amazing, yeah. Really enjoyed it.
We ran out of time to discuss what we actually was going to discuss, the Michael Barrymore thing.
Right,
Because that really tickled me seeing it.
Yeah.
Can you tell us just like 1 minute of discussion on
1
that?
minute, Michael. I told you there was
1
something
minute,
random.
1 minute of Michael
yeah.
Just a
Barrymore.
random thing.
I was on Michael Barrymore's Kids Say the Funniest Thing when I was 9. It's actually the only video footage that we have of my dad in the audience as well.
That's amazing.
So it's amazing to see it, and we looked for it for years, and then someone tagged me in it on TikTok because Michael Barrymore has been sharing all of the clips on his TikTok account, and it was an amazing experience. We got put up for free at the Marriott. We got food together in the restaurant. And it was really good. And a lot of those memories of my dad, that was like a trip just me and him. So, and that was the same year that he got sick. So that was like, it was a wee blessing as well, definitely. Yeah.
How was Michael Barrymore?
He's really funny. He did put his finger up at one of the boys that were in my kind of group, so I didn't like him because he was swearing at the kids. But actually, like when I look back at it, I'm like, it was kind of funny. Like
you were really funny in it.
I was.
You had so much personality in the video
I was
clip.
talking about farts and who I fancied and
it was
and
brilliant,
absolutely
man.
everything.
It's gold.
It really is
And
funny.
you see your dad laughing in the audience
And my
and
dad's
stuff.
just like, oh my God. I know, they're like,
Hey, any
oh.
video you could possibly get, like
I
that's
know, it's actually amazing, yeah. And he had a lot of tattoos on his hands as well, and that was before that was cool. You know, everyone thought he was a gang member. You know?
Do you know the only video I've got of my dad is a video where Mom's like, say hello, and he's just like, and I'm like, that's just my dad.
My
Do you know what I mean?
granddad used to do
It's
stuff like that as well, sticking the big
so
up.
funny. I've got him wishing me happy birthday, and then I'm sticking his finger
Oh,
up to the
that's
camera,
sweet.
and it fucking tickles me every time.
I love it, yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to?
I just love what you guys are doing here. I love the whole ethos behind life after trauma, and that's what I'm into as well. And we're both trying to create that for people in different parts of the community. So it's been great to get together and talk about it.
Thank you. I have two, and I'll be very quick. This T-shirt says "Human for Life."
Love that.
And a friend of ours called Willie Sutherland makes these T-shirts, and he came up with the saying, and it came from the old saying about dogs aren't for Christmas, they're for life.
Yeah, okay.
And he thought, well, humans are for life too, and it was to transcend all humans, regardless of what background. And anyway, he gave us this T-shirt as a gift, and I want to say thanks, Willie. And I want to finish by saying I think you're a very inspirational person. I think you're a really, really powerful and great example, not just to women, but to people. I've got a 5-year-old daughter, and obviously my mum and my daughter's mum are fantastic female role models, but I love that there's women like you out there that are incredible role models to other women. So I've always wanted to have a chance to sit down and chat to you, but in a way where we could share it. So I just wanted to say thanks very much for coming on.
It's been great, and I hope that people can take something from it as well.
I really think they will.
They will.
Yeah.
They will. Cheers, thanks very much.
You've been 2 boys for the scheme?
Yeah.
2 lads for the scheme.
2 lads for the scheme.
And you've been Lacy.
And I've been Lacy.
Thank you.
Tell me something